Welcome to Sexy in Your 60s. This is a space for women 50 and beyond who are choosing to live with vitality, intention, and joy in this chapter of life and the ones ahead of us. I'm your host, Dvora Citron, registered nurse, National Board Certified Health and Wellbeing Coach, and Plant Strong Advocate. On this podcast, we explore what truly helps women thrive in midlife and beyond through evidence-based health insights, real stories, practical strategies, and the deeper sense of meaning that makes life feel rich and connected. I intentionally chose the title, Sexy in Your 60s. When I use the word sexy, I'm not talking about sexuality or how we're seen. I'm talking about energy, confidence, presence, curiosity, purpose. Sexy is how you feel in your body. Sexy is how you move through the world. Sexy is knowing who you are and choosing how you want to show up. I believe this stage of life isn't about winding down. It's about waking up. Not in your 60s? You're still invited to join us. Each episode is designed to support you not just in how you live, but in how you feel in your body, your relationships, and your life. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin. What if one of the most powerful tools for emotional resilience, brain health, and well-being as we age isn't something we take, but something we make? Research is showing that engaging with creativity, especially through color, texture, and hands-on making, activates multiple areas of the brain, supports emotional regulation, and helps us stay adaptable through life's transitions. But beyond the science, many of us feel this truth intuitively. Our surroundings shape us. The colors we live with, the patterns we return to, the materials we touch, all influence how safe, grounded, and alive we feel. And at this stage of life, when roles shift and identities evolve, creativity becomes less about performance and more about presence. It becomes a way to listen inward, to process emotion, and to reconnect with who we are beyond expectations. Today, I'm so glad to be joined by Susan Goldie, an abstract mixed media artist whose work centers on fiber, color, and pattern as powerful tools for emotional expression and well-being. Susan's creative path is rich and multifaceted. She has formal training in fashion design and textile arts and has spent decades working at the intersection of artistry, entrepreneurship, and community. She was a pioneer in the modern sewing studio movement, building one of the first local studios into a thriving, creative community of thousands. She's also worked as a couture bridal designer, a fashion educator, and a costumer on large-scale theatrical productions, including Phantom of the Opera, The Wizard of Oz, and productions at the Stratford Festival Theatre in Canada. Her artwork has been exhibited internationally in Brussels and Madrid, featured on Artsy, and shown through the San Francisco Bay Area. Last year, Susan celebrated her 60th birthday, a meaningful turning point that ushered in a deeper focus on sustainable making, reverence for our planet, and creative work that invites conversation about nature, human, mother, divine, and our shared evolution. This is a conversation about creativity as nourishment, making as meaning, and how working with our hands can support well-being at every stage of life.
Thank you for
Welcome,
that
Susan.
wonderful introduction, and I'm super excited to be here, Dvora. Nice to see you.
I want to ask you to start off by telling us a little bit about your journey
Sure.
as an
I think
artist.
I've been creating art since almost as long as I can remember. I remember actually getting in big trouble when I was about 4 because my parents had bought me this little paint set, and I wasn't, my mom was going to show me how to use it the next day, but I got up really early and went and got water and started painting. And so I think since that time, I've had some kind of crayon or marker or paint around me. My career path has taken different turns and hasn't necessarily been completely focused on fine art, if you will. But I also grew up in beautiful surroundings with always music. There was also color on the wall, whether it be a local artist painting or even just a poster sometimes. But I think my mom really instilled in me this notion that what we're surrounded by, and she would always set like a beautiful table at holiday time. It's almost just part of my DNA to be surrounded by an artistic or beautiful environment. I do think it really leads to well-being or can even change our emotional feeling if you're having a sad or down or angry day, just to be surrounded by color or go work with color or cook a meal. These are all things that they do alter our surroundings. We're not in a static space. So that's a little bit meandering, but that's how it is for me, even
Oh,
like a
yeah,
daily walk in nature. Nature is the best maker of color and pattern.
you were so fortunate to grow up and you continue to be in an environment that is so rich with all kinds of artistic expression. It's really nourished you in so many ways. There's lots of evidence that it nourishes us neurologically. From an early age, that's been part of what your intention has been, to surround
Or
yourself with
even
that.
just a knowing that I feel good in that. Actually, nature and going into nature is a huge part of that. Like this balance, this internal balance, it's just more present for me when I'm outside. And I grew up in Canada, so winter is long and cold, and that didn't really stop us. So,
Thank you for focusing on noticing how something makes you feel, because I think that's an important part of what women 50 and above really need to pay attention to for their well-being is how does something make them feel, and to use that internal self-reflection to decide if that's something that's healthy for them to do. I appreciate you describing how surroundings, either what we're fortunate to be in, along with what we intentionally include, help uplift our spirits and transform our mood, and how that's been part of your journey. Tell us a little about how the art itself, how that you've been doing professionally. Tell us about that
yeah,
evolution.
I decided about 5 years ago that I was going to pivot and make art my full-time endeavor. And so that led to a year or two of, I would say, full-on experimentation. I didn't really set any limits about where things were headed. And at a certain point, my fashion background and my art background came together. There was a small series that I did with shibori dyed paper and stitching and paint. And in that moment, I thought, I don't have to keep my fashion and my art separate anymore. It's all art. It's all one thing. And so I've really been excited about that journey of not keeping things in separate boxes and to really just honor the impulse that comes and see where that takes me. For example, right now, the series that I'm working on is about the elements, and I'm really excited about this. It's a 4-piece installation. So there'll be 4 art to wear, meaning clothing pieces, as well as wall textured art with stitching on it and fabric. And I'm sure there's going to be paint, but it's really about damage and repair, this series. So it's about our impact on the environment, and nature and how nature's resilience is waiting to be healed. And in many times is healing itself despite the impact of what we do. That sums up what I'm excited about right now, is being immersed in this conversation thematically that's very important to me. And, what legacy are we creating for our kids and their kids and what comes after us? But I feel very strongly that the messaging and the visuals have to be beautiful. And I kind of struggle with that because the damage piece is not beautiful. And the things that we're doing that are toxic are not beautiful, but it's also part of what we have created. There's a tension there. And I think that's what's going to lead me to do my best work. And we'll see what happens.
It sounds like your art has given you such opportunity to pivot in your life. You're at such a profound level right now of what you're weaving together and bringing meaning to in your creation that you're sharing. And you're just weaving so many different elements about values, core values, and
I hope so.
global
I hope so.
themes and issues. We met when my daughter was young. She was
Yes.
in your sewing program. And I loved that so much because I was also in a sewing program at that age. And I loved that you had that business in our community. I loved for that age group having a process-oriented program. It wasn't focused just on a product, but it was about learning the process and the beauty and value, pride of personal creativity. I'm sure you had that all mapped
I'm
out.
not sure.
But you shifted from that business model to what you just described into this completely abandoning yourself into the freedom and space of
Well,
being
there's
an
something
artist.
really amazing about working with kids that age. We worked with a lot of kids. I'm not sure how old Talia was when she came. That 5th to 8th grade age, I loved so much working with these kids. If they came to sew now, they didn't yet have this limitation box about things they couldn't do or things they wouldn't be able to make, or that conversation that some of us have, like, oh, I'm not creative. Creativity is for, this subset of people. So what I got out of all those interactions, like providing a space for creativity and teaching skills, but what was really important to me was that people would learn how to take the idea that was in their head and bring it to fruition into a tangible 3D thing in the world, that it's also something you can wear. So it's self-expression and it's so many things. I learned from those kids of that age specifically how to find my 5th grade self and just give myself permission to follow those creative urges. So I'm very grateful for that.
I think it's such an important developmental step that we're finding ourselves at this age needing
Yes.
to do, is to give ourselves permission. Can you think in a very specific way of one thing that transpired from that you gave yourself permission to do?
I think to see clothing as art versus, my training is technical. It's in fashion design, which is creative, but the creativity part is 2% of the job. So I've been trained like how to make the clothes. And theater is a little bit different because it's a lot more expressive and sometimes fantastical. But I think it's all art. Making a meal is art. Sometimes you'll be cutting leeks and I'll see a pattern in them and I'll stop and I'll photograph the colors. But I think it's all art. I get to now say what's art for me and what isn't. To have clothing be included in that makes a lot of sense.
I know color and pattern are central to your work. Now you're working with different media, including fiber. Do you have awareness when you're working with fiber or different mediums and different textures? What is happening to you physically and emotionally?
Yes.
Do you pay attention
Um,
to that?
Materiality, if you will, having this conversation with my materials and even my tools, I feel grounded. I feel I'm lucky at this point because I have really good tools. I have just this deep satisfaction and um joy of flow when working with and having my hands on particularly fabric. Last year I did a really beautiful wedding gown for my daughter-in-law, and we used a vintage sari to create her gown as part of the textile. And we didn't know the
Wow.
story of this sari. We purchased it at a vintage sari shop in New York. Physically working with this textile provided so much joy, but also it's therapeutic. I feel a connection to people that came before me, to the women, because it was most likely women that beaded this silk. What was their story? I just, there's so much energy embedded in the materials for me when I choose wisely. And that makes the journey so much more interesting.
I can feel how spiritual that experience is for you. Is that an intentional element of your art creation that you consciously bring in that spirituality, that emotional regulation that you're talking about? Or do you find that something that organically unfolds and you obviously notice it and enjoy it? You used the word flow. That's one
Mhm.
of the descriptors of that kind of
Yeah, that's a good
experience, too.
question. I think mostly historically it has been kind of that organic process that you're describing. But since I did this big project with this sari textile, I am now more intentional about my studio, how it's organized, what state of mind I'm in. I try to meditate before coming in to do work. I think when I'm in a good kind of balanced place with my life, meaning I'm eating well, I'm exercising well, I'm sleeping well, having that meditative portion of the morning, I find that really sets me up for a higher chance of that extra special spiritual experience.
You are designing your experience and preparing for it with intention to optimize what your experience, what your art creation is going to be for you, both in a tangible result, but as an experience
It's mostly what I'm
itself.
interested in at this phase in my life is that, let me be clear, all days don't go that way. They don't. Stuff happens. But that's like when I'm at my best, that's how
Right.
it is. And that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in keeping those divine channels open. I'm interested in spending time with people and materials that feed that. The more I can find points of connection that feel at that high vibrational level, the more life is meaningful. I don't know if that communicates. It's a little bit esoteric, but that is
Mm.
how it is for me.
In terms of your evolution as an artist, we mentioned the environmental and honoring the planet and incorporating elements of nature. Is that something that evolved, or did that come with a specific epiphany or a certain
I
age?
think I wasn't always aware of it the way that I'm aware of it now. When I had my big birthday last year, I did this giant timeline on my wall of things that I thought were significant in my life in different areas like family or work. I haven't finished it yet. It became this huge project. But what I noticed was that when I was a child, I did spend all this time in nature. A lot of times with my dad, we'd be hiking in the forest in Canada or spending time just in Northern Ontario and remote areas. And then life got, you know, busy, school, career, young family, all of that. But during COVID, Peter and I, my husband, we started hiking. And that regular 2 or 3 times a week, like not just walking, but hiking, like getting into the redwoods and discovering these trails 10 minutes from our home. We're so very, very lucky. That really reconnected me with that earlier, almost naive, but wonderful, childlike wonderment of nature. And I think that in that time period is when it really started seeping back into my work. But then when I reviewed some of my designs from early in my career, it was so interesting because many of the embroidered motifs have these little flowers and things that I now see it was kind of locked in there. But I didn't evaluate it or think of it. But when I looked back, it was always there. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Yes.
Here all along. Mm-hmm. I want to shift our discussion into how you can share your wisdom and your passion in talking to women. We're talking to women 50 and above. And at this stage of life, maybe they're still caring for people. We
Yes.
definitely are in a sandwich generation, but they may have an opportunity to explore creativity in a different way than they did before. I wonder if you can speak to that in terms of what kind of opportunities might be something to look for. What about limiting beliefs like, oh, I'm too old to do
Mm-hmm.
this, or I used to be good at this?
Yes. The limiting beliefs one is big for me. So that's not something that necessarily goes away, but I consciously have to put that committee aside. I think just being aware of that and not being defined by that is key. We can start with small things. We don't have to like take on this giant endeavor. One small step is just buy a notebook or a sketchbook and do something on a piece of paper in there every day. It doesn't have to be a drawing. It could be a sentence. It could be something from a poem that you saw or something that you saw outside that caught your eye. It's like those things that catch our eye or catch our attention. Those are the things to pursue further. We don't have to know where it ends up. We really don't. The surprise and the delight, the magic, it just arrives. I feel our job is just to allow time and space. So I would say start with 15 minutes. We can all do 15 minutes.
I love that idea. Everybody likes getting a new
Yes.
journal. And so it gives you some concrete way, like this is the space right here,
Yeah.
right? Of course, you have to make the commitment to set aside that time because even if we say it's only 15 minutes, well, you've got to
Or
figure out where
10
that
or
15 minutes
5.
is
Like,
each day.
yeah.
And whatever amount, right? It's really similar to meditation. When you make that decision that you're going to set that intention, this is what I'm going to be doing right now.
Yes.
You actually let go of everything else. And you open yourself to so much space and opportunity and creativity. And I love how you said, no evaluation necessary, no expectation of what to produce.
And one
To
other
just
thing
do
I
it.
would add is It's just for you. You don't have to show this. It could even be a booklet. You don't have shit. It could be like, you don't have to show it to anyone. It's just for
A
you
post-it.
and for you to discover. You can show it to people, but I feel like it takes away that it has to look good or it has to be a certain measured thing that people think is good. No, it's just for you.
A little pivot again, Susan. We all have challenges every day, right? I'm wondering how you have used your art and your creativity to help you through emotional challenges and transitions or
So
uncertainty.
it's been key to preserving my well-being in different phases of my life. But I think a really important one where I learned that I lost my sister to cancer when she was 28 and I was 32. And there was a Christmas where we knew she was very, very ill. And it's that life lesson where you realize there's nothing you can do. Like everything in the world can't fix this thing. That year, I just made these. I made everyone a very special handmade gift. And that was a gift to me more than the people, honestly, because just that time in creativity, using my hands to make something beautiful that I knew the person would love, that kind of grounded me. That was an action I could take that was positive. But honestly, it was a time for me to process emotion or grief or upset or anger, but not having it stay stuck in my system. That really taught me.
Yeah, I got
That really
shivered.
taught me making that is a key piece of my well-being. There are times when life has gotten too busy and none of that happened, meaning not creating anything or even drawing anything. And that doesn't feel good and that doesn't go well.
It's been a mainstay for you
Yes.
in staying
Yes.
in your well-being and staying healthy. What has creativity given you that
That
nothing
is
else could?
that is it.
And for you, it
And
sounds like
yeah, and
given you that
self-confidence,
opportunity.
because I think when you know you can
Mhm.
make the thing you need, whatever that is, it gives you confidence.
Perfect time to ask you my signature question. What does sexy mean to you now at this stage of life?
Being healthy, having balance. Really great day is when I've done all those things we talked about, exercise, meditated, a really good fitting pair of jeans. We all need a really good fitting pair of jeans, a good haircut. Your hairdresser is your best friend at this stage. Taking care of my body feels good and sexy at this age. I mean, more about authenticity than perfection. That would sum it up.
That's very honest and frank and real. It's an internal vibe, but the external also helps us
Yes.
feel great. There's no doubt about that. I also feel that way about my
Yeah.
hairdresser, and I happen to have a pair of jeans on that I'm
Excellent.
really liking
Yeah. Yeah.
right
I mean, you
now,
have
so-
to do the work. You got to try on a million
yeah,
pairs,
you
but
got-
when you find the one, or at least I do, when you find the ones.
So you talked a little about the installation you're working on, but what are you looking forward to in terms of your artistic creation that fires you up?
Well, I think that as described, but also just to see what comes next, to see what unfolds, because that's the other thing about making time and space for creativity is that it's by doing the work that we see where it goes and we see what's coming next. The way I work is very experimental in a lot of ways. So I don't know what's coming next, but I think that's exciting to think about, like, whoa, what will come after that? It'll be fun to see.
I think that's the key to us progressing as we age actively, that we stay curious and open and excited about what's coming next, even
Yeah.
though we don't know what it is. Susan, thank you so much. People are going to want to connect with you and see your work. I'll put information in the show notes, but can you share some ways
Yes, of
people can
course.
connect with you
So the
online?
easiest way to see my work is on my website, which is susangoldie.com. That's pretty straightforward. And then I try to share my behind the scenes little snippets from what's going on in the studio and also from hiking and cooking on my Instagram. That's at Susan Goldie Art. I would love for people to connect with me in those two places. And I'm always up for a conversation. If you email me, I will respond.
Terrific. Thank you so much
Thank you so
for
much.
joining us
It's been an
today.
honor.
As we close, I'm struck by how much creativity isn't about making something impressive. As Susan said, it's about making space to feel, to listen, and to notice what's alive within us. And we really have to intentionally dedicate that space, as you recommended. Science and nature reminds us that color and textures and our surroundings actually shape how we feel, and they really shape our nervous system. Conversations like this remind us of something just as important, that creativity can be a companion through change, a way to stay connected to ourselves, and a gentle act of
I love
care.
that companion through change. That's awesome.
You described that. I thought that was such a nice story you told us about
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
when your sister was ill. If today's episode stirred something in you, I invite
Absolutely.
you, and I'm sure Susan does too, to stay curious. Stay curious. Notice what colors you're drawn to, what materials feel grounding, and what small creative moments might bring you back into presence. Because at this stage of life, sexy isn't about striving, it's about being fully, authentically here. Here's a question, a challenge. What's one small way you can invite more color, texture, or creativity into your life this week, simply to support how you want to feel?
Oh, good.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us. If today's conversation resonated with you, I invite you to take the next gentle step by downloading the Sexy in Your 60s Starter Guide, a free resource designed to help you reflect on what supports your energy, vitality, and sense of connection in this season of life. You'll find it linked in the show notes or at slant2plants.com/starter-guide. You can also explore more of my work, including health coaching, plant-forward nutrition, and resources for vibrant living at slant2plants.com. And for the ultimate transformation, join the Sexy in Your 60s coaching experience at sexyinyour60s.com. If this episode spoke to you, please consider following the podcast, leaving a review, or sharing it with someone who might need it right now. That's how these conversations continue to grow. Until next time, take care of yourself, stay curious, and stay boldly, beautifully sexy, exactly as you are.